Sorry, that was me. I put the wrong video on. Like an idiot. Right, here's the proper review.
Today on the island of Sodor, Luke gets a phone call on a wooden railway Percy. And we wonder why Thomas is surrounded by NPCs straight out of a PlayStation 2 game. But first, a quick splash of the usual bloke Luke childhood lore.
In 2008, I was back in my Thomas & Friends craze. The Great Discovery reminded me why I loved Thomas in the first place, and brought me back to a show that I'd long since forgotten since 2006. Okay, I know that 2 years in retrospect isn't that long, but remember, I was a kid, so that felt like 20 years at a time. One morning, I was having breakfast, getting ready for school. I turned on the TV, and an episode of Thomas & Friends had just started playing on Milkshake. Steady Eddie, to be precise. And no sooner than 1 minute into the episode, this delightful face appeared on screen. Talk about whiplash. The characters' faces were actually moving. Having been so used to the static faces in the past, or in Series 5's case, being absolutely terrified, this change was huge, but not scary. It was the same narrator I'd grown up with listening to with previous Thomas stories, and the faces, while having questionable angles at certain points, looked similar enough to the old ones. It was intriguing. And then I just stopped watching it again. Yeah, I only caught a couple more episodes of Series 12 on TV before just deciding to rewatch my Thomas VHS tapes and DVDs of the classic era. And then shortly into 2009, the first fully CGI animated feature of Thomas & Friends was announced, Hero of the Rails. And my anticipation for that film meant that I just kinda forgot about Series 12. It came and went. But having gone back and watched it fully for the first time, woof, what an absolute disaster that I just completely forgot about. This is it. The one everyone has been waiting for, literally. The final stop of Model Series Thomas before the models themselves were either kept on by the CGI animators for measurements, put on display, or auctioned off. If I were to compare, if The Great Discovery was the Thomas & Friends equivalent of Avengers Endgame, Series 12 was Madam Web.
He was in the Amazon with my mom when she was researching spiders right before she died.
What the fuck was that? With way more production hell than any series we've covered so far on this channel. What with how the series was meant to continue on in this hybrid model CGI format, but due to the inflated costs and poorly timed recession in 2008, meant that they had to switch to full CGI last minute. How Pierce Brosnan was meant to continue voicing for the series, but was then dropped by the time the animation was synced to his narration, so the two returning Michaels had to match those mouth movements as best they could. The inconsistency of the characters' faces being animated 1 minute, then the next they're static, the list of 20 episodes as opposed to the usual 26, so much just went very wrong for the production team. But do I think it is the bottom of the barrel blight on humanity that everybody claims it to be? Like, out of everything that we've seen so far, is Series 12 the absolute worst of the model era of Thomas & Friends?
The answer is yes and no.
For those of you expecting me to go into Series 12 and rip it to pieces, you're still going to get that, definitely, but you'll be surprised to find out that it is not my least favourite of the model series. Even after rewatching it too many goddamn times for this video, I don't entirely hate it. But enough delays, you guys have waited long enough for this. Let's wrap up the model era of Thomas once and for all with Series 12.
Today, Luke is reviewing Series 12 of Thomas the Train. But first, Luke needs to bury his mind deep in the sand so he doesn't fucking lose it! He has a pair of scissors, a shovel, and the 7 Chaos Emeralds. Which of these will help Luke bury his mind in the sand? Is it the pair of scissors? No. If Luke tried cutting every grain of sand, the review would take another 50,000 years to be made. Try again. What about the 7 Chaos Emeralds? Will these help Luke dig a hole? No! He'll just use them to turn into Super Bloke Luke and leave the Earth so he doesn't have to review the goddamn series! Let's try one more time. How about the shovel? Yes! 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 Now Luke can bury all conscious thoughts from his mind before reviewing Series 12. Well done.
Aye, we are in the pits with this one. This is the worst batch of Three Strikes episodes I have ever seen. Like, wow, these are astoundingly bad. Throughout this epic voyage of reviewing Thomas, if there's one thing I've made clear, it's that for the Hit Model series, you know exactly what you're getting yourself into with the opening episode. As far as I can tell, all the odd-numbered series seem to have the best openers, with Series 9's Percy and the Oil Painting and Series 11's Thomas and the Storyteller, whereas the even-numbered ones have the worst of it, with Series 8's Thomas and the Tuber and Series 10's Follow That Flower, assuming you're going off the UK release order. Series 12, being an even number, continues this trend with the absolute travesty that is Thomas and the Billboard. First of all, you know it's a bad sign when the narrator starts reading the title before it appears on screen.
Thomas and the Billboard.
I understand it's probably an editing error, but it almost sounds like Angelus is thinking, fuck it, the sooner I read this, the sooner it's over. Secondly, this episode firmly establishes the two biggest issues when it comes to Series 12's writing: the lacking common sense of the characters and the pacing of the overall stories. Why does Thomas not realise he isn't in the photo until he sees the billboard? Look, he's completely hidden from view, which means he can't see the camera or the flash when the photo was taken. On top of that, he thinks that Diesel blocked him on purpose, but he was right there when the photographer was giving instructions on where the engines need to be.
Now, Diesel, can you move in? Diesel moved in.
It's not like he was puffing away, you know, the usual Thomas was too far away to hear them bullshit. He was right there. Is he deaf? Can trains get selective hearing? Thomas collects the billboard, grumbles about being blocked out of it, doesn't notice a cow until he can conveniently turn onto a siding that's certainly not a setup for a crash. Oh, look at that! The billboard flies off the flatbed into a lake. Thomas is then told off for losing the... Wait, it just fades to him asking the photographer to take another picture? Dude, you just yeeted a huge-ass billboard into the lake. There's nails and God knows how many other metal threads in that thing. So much splintered wood. It's a health hazard just floating there in the water for anyone who might want to go for a swim. Get that bitch out of there! He gets the engines together for the photograph, but he doesn't want Diesel to find out. So when he goes back to get the photographer, because, you know, taking him to the sheds on the first journey would have been too smart, he notices Diesel heading to the sheds, so he rushes back and tells all the engines to come back later. They all fuck off as Diesel rolls by that very minute, so now they can just come back in a quick and easy Adobe Premiere fade transition. Thomas then goes back to get the photographer. Couldn't he have, I don't know, taken the bus to get there by now? And Diesel rolls by again, so Thomas wheeshes steam so he doesn't see the photographer. Michael Brandon says the funny line in the US dub.
The steam has made my camera wet.
Laugh!
Then the photographer tells Thomas to tell the engines to come back later again, then it fades to the engines coming back later. Wow, they have really got their foot hard down on the accelerator with this one, haven't they? Diesel sees what's going on, Thomas feels terrible, and the Fat Controller just appears out of thin air. Shouldn't it be Fat Air because he's big? Then finally, the new photograph is taken. Thomas wasn't smiling! The flash went off and he was looking worried. Gonna take another one? Nope, he's just gonna do Diesel's jobs while he gets the billboard. Alright, I guess. Oh, now the billboard is covered in a tarpaulin, is it? I guess Thomas's accident from before scared the poor bastards who built it. The billboard goes up and everybody is hunky-dory by the end. Hooray! If their CGI faces don't show up in the photograph, does that mean that the engine's faces have vampire blood? And that was only episode 1. Continuing on with characters lacking common sense, it's one thing to have them make dumb decisions just so a story can happen, like Edward deliberately taking a bumpy track so that the water wheel can break free from the ropes on the flatbed, Thomas and Diesel racing backwards so they can purposefully damage the quarry, and Emily stopping on the muddy tracks just so they can sink and get her stuck. But they purposefully do stupider things to either drag out or speed up the story to fit the runtime. Take Rosie's Funfair special for example, or Carnival special depending on your dub. Rosie loses most of the trucks on her journey and she only brings 2 of them to the station. But when she goes back to get the rest of it, she takes the trucks that she just delivered with her. Why? But you've just brought them to where they need to be and now you're taking them away again. Leave them, for fuck's sake. You also have Henry Gets It Wrong, where Henry for some reason has to clear all 3 tracks that are blocked before taking the woodsman to the wishing tree. When in reality he could just clear 1 track, take the workman to the tree, and then clear the others while they save the tree. And why didn't Salty take the workman when the first track was cleared? He didn't go anywhere, he just sat there doing nothing for ages until Henry came back to pull the workman just a few feet forward. Look, the wishing tree is here, and the trucks blocking Salty's way are just there. What a lazy But then we get a triple whammy of this nonsense in the episode Saved You. Not only does Thomas completely miss Rocky's hook holding up the water tower he's loading onto Duck's flatbed, he then later has to ask the signalman to switch the points to divert Harvey away from a fallen tree, but later when he's pulling Toby off the main line he can just switch tracks by himself? Like, which is it? Do they need signalmen or don't they? Pick one. Then he goes to collect the engineer who missed Toby and brings him to Toby. Just take Toby with you to the engineer! You're wasting Just take Toby with you to the engineer! You're wasting valuable coal and water because your IQ begins with a decimal point, you bellend! Why doesn't Edward wait to be coupled up, yet he somehow does it without the workman? Why does Mountain Marvel rush the 3 strikes of Peter Sam telling the engines not to take the shortcut? Why does Henry not spend 30 years feeling terrible for blocking the tracks before doing something? Because we've got 7 minutes, baby, and that means making things either as slow or as fast as possible to meet the quota, even if it makes these long-time beloved characters behave like simpletons. And that's on top of the episodes themselves feeling a bit samey. Not in the usual way though, because to the series' benefit, the bog standard Thomas takes such and such object to location name here stories are nowhere to be seen. Yep, Thomas doesn't deliver anything gimmicky like cocoa powder or stinky cheese, chickens, a light bulb, or a car once. Not even Thomas and the billboard falls under that category because the billboard gets ruined in less than a minute and the episode is instead about getting things ready to take another photograph. Thomas puts the brakes on almost follows that story formula, but then the special bricks for the river bridge are not a one-time gimmick, like they're actually important for something railway related. The only exception to this is Duncan and the hot air balloon because, you know, carrying a hot air balloon when it's already inflated is very stupid. But the main character isn't Thomas, so it kinda sticks out in that way. That means, for the first time since Series 7, every episode in Series 12 is unique in concept. When I say these stories feel similar, it's because a couple of them share certain premises with just different characters. We get 3 stories with characters purposefully taking the wrong tracks whilst refusing help from others because they want to prove how clever they are. 2 episodes where a character almost ruins the plans for a party celebration because of their own personal goals. 2 episodes where a character pulls their train away from another engine and the resulting tug of war causes confusion and delay, another 2 episodes where a character delays their jobs to find something rare and special, and 2 episodes where an engine tries keeping a heavy train all to themselves, leading to them wrecking themselves in some way. At the very least though, every similar episode has enough different characters, scenarios, weather conditions, and consequences to help each one stand out in a way. Like they use the same idea but with different enough scripts. The episodes themselves are batshit insane, but at least you're not stuck watching exactly the same premise over and over again if you decide to watch all of Series 12 in one go. Since I'm being a bit more positive towards Series 12, I think now is as good a time as ever to talk about some of the things that these stories do right. Yeah, I said it, there's some good stuff here. Some of it you will have heard before in other reviews of Series 12, and some are so minuscule that you probably never realised it until now. I like how they utilise the now fully restored Great Waterton. The Great Discovery set up this place as the once main town of Sodor when steam engines first came to the island. With the town now back to its former glory, we now have a new location for our main cast. Unlike the Sodor airport, which was mostly swept aside following Calling All Engines, most likely because there isn't much you can do with steam engines in an airport, several episodes this series feature characters going to Great Waterton either to deliver goods and passengers or pick passengers up. It's not like they introduced one station building in the middle of nowhere, this is the old main Sodor town being treated as a main town again. What's more, they also don't overuse it, because despite getting a lot of focus after its introduction in the preceding special, only 7 episodes in Series 12's 20 episode run feature the characters going to Great Waterton. It doesn't pretend like the other places on Sodor aren't important anymore, like Knapford, Maithwaite, or even the Sodor airport. They get just as much coverage in this series as well. That is how you utilise a new big location in Thomas the Tank Engine. Enough appearances to make it feel like an important part of the railway, but not too much to a point where it would feel like that series' new gimmick. Even having stories that introduce new landmarks to the town, like the Sodor Tramway's tram shed, the bandstand, because Sodor residents can't breathe without a brass band, and a giant water wheel being put on display. But Luke, I hear you cry, we never see the water wheel again after Steady Eddie, because in Toby's special surprise, it's not where it's supposed to be. Yes, that is correct. But what if I told you that Series 12 actually has some consistent world building and continuity? It's just that the episode order is mixed up. In Thomas Puts the Brakes On, we see him, Stanley, and Rocky building a new river bridge made of special stones. By the end of the episode, the Sodor River Bridge is finished, and in the next episode, Percy and the Bandstand, again assuming you're watching in the UK release order, we see Percy crossing that very same bridge. This would be a solid bit of continuity between episodes, if we didn't already see Edward crossing the river bridge way back in Steady Eddie. Thomas episodes being published out of order has been a thing since the old days. Even the ongoing story with the narrow gauge engines in Series 4 had its episode order muddled, but it didn't matter because we knew it was just a goof. So it's fair to say the same thing happened here with Series 12. Steady Eddie and Percy and the Bandstand definitely take place after the river bridge was built and Thomas Puts the Brakes On, it's just that the episode order got squandered. With that knowledge, we can assume that if we don't see the water wheel in Toby's special surprise, then this episode also takes place before Steady Eddie. This is all mundane, I know, but it's a rarity for the hit model era to establish any sense of continuity, and Series 12 was already calling back to previous episodes, with Toby remembering both Emily discovering the seals at Black Lock in Series 8, Henry finding a new flagpole with the Scottish Castle in Series 9, and Thomas finding Great Waterton in the Great Discovery, Peter Sam finding an old statue of Proteus, a character established in Series 9, the return of the Wishing Tree, first seen in Series 8, and just Great Waterton in general. So to have these episodes be somewhat interconnected, hindered only by them being jumbled up, it's pretty cool. Something that the last 4 hit series in a row could have really benefited from. Okay, what else did I like about the stories? I like the concept of Henry gets it wrong. The premise of him blocking all 3 lines is silly, but I get what they're doing. It's like a peaceful protest about nature being cut down. Henry severely misread the situation, but I like that he's not willing to let a tree he cares so much about get cut down. Christ on a bike, he is moving a lot of trucks. And since I keep bringing the episode up, I like Toby's special surprise with him going off the beaten track to find something big and important. It gives me Toby's Discovery vibes from Series 5. I also love the ridiculousness of Thomas hearing from Sir Handel that nobody has ever found the man in the hills, and he immediately just brings the dairyman to him saying, "Hey look, I found him!"
I found the man in the hills. I'm not the man in the hills.
I am the milkman. My milk is delicious.
What? You're expecting me to rant about Push Me Pull You? No, not really. I don't think it's that bad. Uh-oh. Our subscribers left. I do agree, it is single-handedly the worst Skarloey and Rheneas episode in the entire model series, and it's definitely on my least favourite episodes list of Series 12. The two engines play tug-of-war pulling a puppet show train, and for some reason that ruins Skarloey's brakes so he can't stop. He goes really fast and crashes into Duncan. He goes really fast and crashes into Rusty. And he goes really fast and runs into a pond. I also realise it kind of spits in the face of what I said earlier about Duncan and the hot air balloon being the only 3 strikes gimmick of the week episode. Oops. It's repetitive, it's dumb, it killed Trampy. I get it.
But, and this is a big but,
we are at least seeing the engine props do things that are visually interesting. The tug-of-war scene, despite how ridiculous it is, the way it's shot is pretty good. The sharp pulls from the train going one way then the other, the close-ups of the engine's wheels, and the low angles of Skarloey are pretty cool. Seeing him crash into the trucks of Bunting, the trucks of ice cream, and then the pond are stupid, but at least they require well-timed crash stunts, and with the ice cream especially, could only really be done in one take. I'd much rather watch Push Me Pull You compared to episodes like Chickens to School, Thomas's Frosty Friend, or Don't Be Silly Billy, because it at least has the engine props doing interesting things on camera. Don't misunderstand me. I'm not calling Push Me Pull You or the episodes in Series 12 as a whole good overall, because they all range from mediocre to flat out awful, where my most positive feelings I have towards them are deciding which is the least ridiculous. What I am saying is that with a rare sense of continuity for this era of the show, both with addressing past stories and trying to interconnect this year's batch of episodes together, how they continue to world build with how much they use Great Waterton from The Great Discovery, and how every episode, okay, mostly every episode, is completely unique in concept, there are some things to appreciate here that weren't really a thing in the stories of Series 8 through 11. I am aware that I have fully settled into the kind of stories I will see throughout all of Series 13 to 16, and that does fill me with dread, but there is still a spark of light in Series 12 stories that embodies what I enjoy about Model Series Thomas. It's just very, very, very small.
Boko is ready to leave the station. What's he pulling today? Boko hums out of the station pulling a massive turd. Boko hums out of the station pulling a massive turd. And Twitter. Now Boko hums out of the station pulling a massive turd. Twitter. And AI-generated art. Can you remember what Boko is pulling? Boko hums out of the station pulling a massive turd. Twitter. And AI-generated art. I wonder what's next. Boko hums out of the station pulling a massive turd. Twitter. AI-generated art. And Thomas and Friends would. Can you still remember all the things Boko was pulling? Let's see. Boko hums out of the station pulling a massive turd. Twitter. AI-generated art. And Thomas and Friends would. I wonder where Boko is going. Boko is on his way to put all this shit in the bin. Well done, Boko.
Okay, so I just wanted to clarify, no, I did not use any AI art generating websites. I mean, the results are obvious, but yeah, I just wanted to have like visual proof that I did indeed make that photo in Photoshop. There's the photo there in all of its terrifying glory, and there's all the layers there of the shit that I did with it. This is mainly to like take the piss out of AI generated art. I did not use it any website that generates art in any way. So yeah, just wanted to clarify that. Even in this production hell of a series, we still managed to get some new characters, and generally speaking, they're pretty good. I think my favourite of these newbies is definitely Hank, who's not the first American steam engine build in the show, nor is he the first to have an American accent in both dubs, but I really like how chipper he is without realising he's just pissing off Thomas more and more. Like, from Hank's perspective, he's looking out for Thomas when he's too tired to whistle hello to people from pulling his heavy train, but to Thomas it's like he's mocking him for being so out of breath.
Howdy, everybody. Thomas is overloaded right now. I'll whistle for him.
I really like it when a new character brings out what we love about Thomas, and this is a solid example of that. Flora she's fine. She's like a smaller version of Molly and is equally just as passable as a character, but I do really like that her purpose of being there is to help with the newly opened Sodor tramways. With how Toby finds the Sodor tramway sign for Great Waterton in another episode, now comes along another steam tram to help with running it. Tram trouble is still mediocre and repetitive of course, but I like Flora's introduction having a purpose. Side note, Thomas blushes when he meets her.
Hello, Thomas. Hello.
And this was years before he met Ashima in the Great Race and did the same thing.
Do you think you're better than all the other engines just because...
Damn, more like heave-ho, Thomas, am I right? This mask is really fucking sweaty. Colin is an interesting new addition for both the narrow gauge engines and the wharf set. He's like the polar opposite to Cranky, from his size, to his colour scheme, to his overall personality. He openly admits that he gets lonely whenever the yearly Christmas party is held at the Thin Controller's house, as being stuck in one place means he can't go. His only Spotlight episode is still very shoddy. The complications that come from Freddy just being unable to ask the Thin Controller about having the party at the wharf are dumb, but it is nonetheless a sweet one, introducing a nice new crane character for the narrow gauge engines to interact with, and whose presence also adds some life to the already magnificent set for the wharf. The big issue with these new guys is not only the series they were introduced in, but we know we'll never see them again after this. It's very hard to feel emotionally attached to them because after this, they're gone. Though at the very least, I can safely say this is the first time in the hit series where the newbies are not completely forgettable, nor do they make me want to pull an Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind just to forget them! Continuing... What the fuck was that noise? Continuing. Fuck it, I'm keeping that in. Continuing. Fuck again. What the hell? What's going on? Continuing with. That's what I'm trying to get. Continuing the Great Discovery's shtick of bringing back old characters, Series 12 had so many familiar faces we hadn't seen in ages. There were those we already saw in The Great Discovery, like Jack and Alfie from the pack, Ben, and my boy Arthur. Good God, man, where did your eyes go? But also Donald and Douglas after their one-time appearance in Series 11, Murdoch, Oliver, and Toad getting supporting roles in their episodes, and even Stepney.
Oh my.
Is it just tradition at this point for Stepney to not have a good day since the switch to non-Audrey stories?
Duck gazed at it for so long, he ran into the back of Stepney.
One morning, Edward was in a hurry. He didn't even stop to say hello to Stepney.
But I think we can all agree that the greatest returnee for Series 12 was Duck, as he got a few tiny supporting roles as either the voice of reason or the unfortunate engine at the sticky end of another engine's stupid behaviour. It was such a relief to see him come back and not be dumbed down to fit the style of the writing for the era. The same applies to the other returnees as a matter of fact, because with the stories revolving around who is the main character behaving like a brain-dead child, which is usually the core cast of the Steam team, being stuck in the supporting role group really does keep them out of the line of fire, so to speak. And now that I can finally talk about the main fleet, what the fuck? Every single one of these guys are running on the same wavelength, and it is wafer thin. I already mentioned Thomas with how he completely misses the lens flash when the photographer takes the first photo, but he completely ignores Mavis after bumping her off the tracks in his backwards race with Diesel, and he thinks running without his brakes working properly is perfectly safe? Gordon takes a shortcut to try and beat Stanley in a race when he is an express engine and can easily overtake him because he's right there! Or how Edward deliberately takes bumpy tracks to show off a special train. Ooh gee, I wonder what could happen. Oh my god, it broke away. Whoever would have seen that coming? The same applies to the Narrowgauge crew with Scarlowy and Rheneas' game of tug-of-war and Duncan and the hot air balloon. Nobody is safe from having their intelligence shrunk, and that in turn treats the audience as idiots, which, I don't know if you know, as a writer, you're not supposed to do that. Though, what saves the characters from being completely devoid of good moments is, surprisingly, how they are paired with each other. Series 12 has a lot of unique character pairings, some of which you'd be surprised weren't a thing already, and I'm talking specifically about Emily and Murdoch in Excellent Emily. Both characters were introduced in Series 7 and were even shown side by side in an episode, yet they never interacted on screen, properly I should stress, until now. It's quite nice seeing them finally speak to each other, and despite the fact that you could swap Murdoch out with anyone in the cast like Edward, Henry, or Thomas and Duck, who were already in the episode, the fact they did choose Murdoch to pair with another character from his introductory series, that's good. I like it. Gordon and Stanley are a pairing I quite enjoyed too. Before, in The Great Discovery, Gordon, like the rest of the main fleet that wasn't Thomas, immediately liked Stanley when he came to help out with such a huge job for Sodor Day.
Stanley knows how to have fun, Gordon declared.
Now that Sodor Day is over and work life is back to normal, Stanley is just another working engine on the island, capable of making mistakes like being late with a passenger train. And I do like that it takes one time with Stanley being late and Gordon is just pissed off with him, thinking, oh great, forget all that good stuff I said before, he's just like all the other little engines. Ugh, I can't with this guy. Yet the moment he thinks Stanley will be in trouble when he accidentally causes logs to roll onto the tracks he's taking, Gordon makes a beeline to save him.
Stop, Stanley! Stop! Stanley applied his brakes and screeched to a halt just in front of the logs.
Deep down inside, Gordon really cares about him, and it's this act of kindness that earns him a new friend.
I won't be taking any shortcuts this time. Stanley laughed, and Gordon smiled at his new friend.
But the standout dynamic is between James and the once horrid truck from Series 11, Hector. Something that was set up in very loose terms there in Hector's one and only episode last series, when James saw him at his worst at the beginning and then was shocked to see him looking happy at the back of his goods train. There wasn't really any need to bring Hector back at all. His character was wrapped up pretty nicely in Hector the Horrid. An angry, towering truck who learns through hardship and later kindness that yelling at everyone around you isn't the way to deal with being afraid, and that all you need is to trust someone enough to help you through it. Now we get to see him as a responsible truck, an impossibility amongst the other troublesome ones, as he gives James advice on how to get their delivery done safely. This is all for the sake of having a voice of reason telling the obviously irresponsible James what not to do, but I like that they didn't just default to him being troublesome again now that his arc is over. James too fits the story, as he is the only one of the main fleet who almost gets through unscathed by the dumb writing, thinking he knows best on what tracks to take in the dangerous snowy weather and having his ego tested when he feels too embarrassed to listen to a truck giving orders in front of his friends, when in reality Hector is just spitting facts. It's fun seeing these two solve problems together, and I really like how Hector hypes James up before they run down the hill to ram the train through a snowbank.
Go, James, go!
These dynamics are held back by the awful writing, but at least they tried to add something to the main characters and utilise the lesser supporting ones, showing that if the series had continued with this hybrid format, they could have refined their craft and built upon these dynamics, or introduced new ones. We briefly saw Oliver and Arthur travelling together. What if we got an episode with them? Or Stanley and Percy, since they were shown to get on very well in The Great Discovery. How would Flora interact with Toby on the Sodor tramways? The seeds were there. They just never had the chance to grow. Yellow?
Hey Luke, it's me.
Dirty Percy 6? This isn't about Charlie again, is it?
No.
Okay, good. What's up?
What's up?
What the hell, man? You completely forgot to talk about Rosie!
Well, she's like the rest of the cast that I didn't mention. I've just got nothing to say about her.
Again? Dude, that middle of the road bullshit isn't gonna work anymore, especially with how atrociously they handled Rosie in her only spotlight episode of the Mattel series. Do you hear me?
Okay. So, what do you think I should say then?
What do I think you should say? You don't have to say anything. I'm taking over now.
What? But why?
Why not? You let Adam talk about Rosie in season 10.
He hacked my computer. That is a huge difference.
Come on, please. For my sake as well as yours.
Alright. I'll put you on speaker.
Alright. Let's do this.
Hi everyone! For those of you who don't know me, I'm Dirty Percy 6, and I tend to overanalyze things on a deeper level than they were ever intended to be. Because what else am I going to do with this degree? Enter the mental health field, obtain a license to administer therapy, become a therapist, and help people become better versions of themselves? Nah, I sell cars. Rosie has been perceived and described as a gimmick by the Thomas fandom for years. Thomas Theorist did raise a valid point about gendered marketing when he discussed her, so I'm not going to go into that because I think he did a decent enough job of explaining the obvious. There is, however, more to her that no one ever talks about, and that can be attributed to how little Rosie was used overall. On the surface, Rosie is a little sister type to Thomas. She idolizes Thomas and wants to be just like him. But if you dig just the tiniest bit deeper and embrace the role of gendered marketing, Rosie shows the reality of being a female in a male-dominated workplace. Now, to be fair, Emily shows this pretty well too, and I talked about that in my video about her. But because she is an older and more experienced engine, she knows that when it comes to male workplace bro shit, you just fling it back at them. Rosie doesn't have that experience with the world yet, and because of that, she hasn't given many opportunities to work and be really useful. When Rosie is given a chance, she screws up because no one helps her. The male-dominated work environment tends to expect women to either just know what to do, or to be completely incompetent, no matter how much they have been trained. And if they have to be taught how to do their job, they're treated as if they're unqualified to do said job. You following what I'm saying here? So because Rosie was never really given a chance and never really taught how to be an engine, everyone thinks she's just incompetent, because she is, but not really through any fault of her own. Which is kind of messed up when Rosie is supposed to be appealing to the female audience members, and instead of challenging gender stereotypes, they show Rosie fall victim to the realities of being a female trying to break into a male-dominated industry, leading to her failing miserably, and indirectly discouraging young girls from trying things that are often described as being for boys.
All this is to say that season 12 did Rosie really, really dirty. Especially when you remember how much gendered marketing was used to promote both her character and her toy sales.
In her only spotlight episode of the era, Rosie is written like an idiot. I mean, what better way to appeal to the female audience than to show the only other girl being a complete moron? Although, Thomas is also a moron, so I guess they've got that going for them.
Gender equality. Yay!
She's written as a simpleton, but we as adults should know that there's a possibility that Rosie was just inexperienced as an engine in general, but we barely see her in the show following the birthday mail, and she didn't notice that by the time she was at Maithwaite, she only had 2 of her original 5 trucks, which means that she couldn't tell that there was a difference in weight after the coupling snapped. Wow, she really does take after Thomas though, doesn't she? Not being able to tell she's pulling literally nothing? Or maybe she's just super strong. Rosie's only actual mistake was pulling the train away from Emily at the docks. That's it. She didn't even do anything else wrong in this episode. She didn't do anything in this episode. She's just saying, I'm pulling the carnival special, and had some trucks break away from her. Her idiocy lies in not noticing that the trucks had broken free. 4 chains snapped in this episode. 4! Seriously, we need a manufacturer's safety recall. That's a thing in the UK, right? Whether it is or not, this is what they get for not spending the money and using American steel! By the end of the episode, the 2 girls are besties, even though they barely spoke to each other, and Rosie threw a truck of benches at Emily's face. Like, I don't know, I wouldn't want to be friends with someone that threw benches at my face. It's too bad that Rosie and Emily don't interact much after this. Rosie just showed up one day and completely idolizes Thomas, who has done nothing to deserve that idolization other than be Sir Topham Hatt's favorite engine. Oh, I get it now. She wants to be just like Thomas because she wants to get used more so that she can have more opportunities to be a really useful engine. She can't be really useful if she's not being used for jobs. How many times do we see her in the series? Oh, wow. Wow. Unfortunate. Anyway, what was I saying? Yes, Rosie is a blank slate character who doesn't do a lot in the series. She appeared in the birthday mail episode, and she wants to copy Thomas. Then on the day she's supposed to actually work with Thomas, she runs away, and probably doesn't get to come out of the shed for a while because she ran away from her job, leaving Thomas to do the work himself just like a scared little girl. Then she appears again in the episode Thomas Sets Sail, where everyone Thomas meets is a female character. So it's not so much a Rosie appearance as it is a girl appearance. And then Thomas splatters her with mud in Thomas and the Runaway Car. Rosie stopped idolizing Thomas as an engine after this, but still took after him by being stupid enough to think that she should do a job other than the one that Sir Topham Hatt assigned her. Sir Topham was definitely being nice by letting her come out and be the back engine for Emily, giving her another chance, as Emily is more than capable of pulling that train herself. No wonder Rosie got stuck on cameo duty. She can't follow directions, so she's just stuck in the shed out of the way. She obviously doesn't listen all that well either. Emily said she had to take something to High Farm, and then Rosie calls it Hill Farm.
After we pull the carnival special, I have to collect the milk from High Farm. Then Emily could puff straight to Hill Farm.
No wonder she doesn't know how to pull trains. No wonder she can't recognize when something's gone wrong. Rosie is a victim of incompetent management not preparing their employees for adverse situations. This is what happens when you don't have a quality policy and procedures manual. This is what happens when we don't teach people critical thinking. This is what happens when children are sheltered. They're incompetent, oblivious, bumbling fools who will never survive a day in the real world without mommy and daddy to protect them at all costs for the rest of their existence. This is what happens when we remove home economics from schools and we have incompetent people in the workplace.
I don't hate stupid people for being stupid. I hate them when their stupidity affects me.
All of this would be solved if Rosie simply knew how to be an engine. None of this would have happened if someone had merely trained their employees correctly. Maybe this wouldn't have happened if Thomas had simply mentored Rosie like she clearly wanted him to. Honestly, I think that Rosie's carnival special is way worse than Push Me, Pull You. I know. They're literally the same story though. Chains break because of a game of tug of war, and then multiple stupid fucking crashes occur. However, story-wise, the carnival special is significantly worse, because Skarloey gets to learn the power of friendship, and Rosie gets chewed out by the fat controller for something that wasn't even her fault. Doesn't really seem very fair. Although, women do tend to get chastised more in the workplace for things that are out of their control, so I guess that's just more realism. Nice job, Hit. Also, why does the Thomas Wiki describe Rosie as a tomboy? Like, I played in the mud and ate bugs and stuff as a kid, but I wouldn't say I was a tomboy. What the fuck even is a tomboy? Is it a label we throw on girls who don't conform to
stereotypical feminine attributes?
Did you get everything you need out of your system?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, good. Now can you please let me move on to the production design?
Wait, Luke, wait. Actually, before I go, you know how Nia and the unfriendly...
It's been a very long day, and Luke wants to go to sleep. Every night, Luke listens to YouTube to help him doze off. In his playlist, he has a Trampy movie, lo-fi beats to sleep to, and a Sonic the Hedgehog video essay. What should Luke listen to in order to help him sleep? Should he listen to the Sonic video essay? No. Otherwise, he'll stay awake to pay attention to another of his special hyperfixations. Try again. What about a Trampy movie? Will this help him sleep? No. The constant screaming from Trampy will keep him awake all night. Let's try one more time. What about lo-fi beats to sleep to? Yes! This is perfect in order to help Luke doze off. Unless there's a YouTube ad in the video.
Nothing beats a Jet2 holiday. And right now, you can save £50 per person. That's £200 off for a family of 4.
Holy moly! It's actually had diarrhea is what's happened here.
The part of Series 12 that undoubtedly took the worst hit from the inflated costs and the 2008 recession was the set designs. These were something that were already getting duller and duller over time since the hit buyout, but now at the unintentional end of the model series, they are almost completely lifeless. To say it was weird going from the Great Discovery being mostly on top form with its railway sets and building props to this would be an understatement. My god, it was so jarring. It's bad enough that we get the usual trappings of the railway lines being surrounded by mostly trees and bushes, but on some occasions they forget to put anything in the background, meaning we only see the obvious sky backdrop box. The logging station in particular, god, just look at all that negative space. It has its usual high points like the very pretty looking wharf in Great Waterton. We even get the return of the smelter's yard, which hadn't been seen since Calling All Engines, if you would believe it. But it's like the set design was what came at the cost of the added CGI, as if they had to rush what was already an expensive show at an unfairly quick pace, just so that the animators could get started as soon as possible before the show was due to air on TV. Okay, I think it's about time that we addressed the elephant in the tunnel, so to speak. The very odd CGI elements of Series 12, which were definitely ambitious for the time, but they do create a lot of strange inconsistencies. I'm not talking about things like the humans, because they are all animated in Series 12, only occasionally using a static figure as a stand-in to be animated around, or if the camera is so far away that it isn't really needed. That's good. Or at least as good as it can be for the time it was made. Nope, I'm talking about how they chose to animate the engine's faces. The animation was done by Nitrogen Studios, accomplished by the production team putting motion trackers on the engine props where the faces would normally be, in order to match the scaling and movements of the faces with the moving props more accurately, resulting in these lovingly horrifying behind-the-scenes photos of the engines without faces and people replaced with red markers. Does anyone know why these photos in particular look like this? Were they damaged in the archives? Was this how the raw footage looked before colour correction? I have no idea why these photos are so goddamn ominous. Sorry, where was I? Oh yeah, what makes the CGI faces inconsistent is that it feels like they can't make up their minds if they want to stick to using these CGI faces, or stick to the usual model faces. When a model face is used, it's when the engines are far away from the camera, when they're running by the camera really fast, or if their face is obscured by another object. Except when it isn't, and we get shots like this, or this, or this, or this, where one, sometimes two or three or several engines use their model faces, which I sort of do and sort of don't get. On the one hand, I completely understand that this was their first attempt at this hybrid style, and so maybe they were looking for ways to minimise the workload for Nitrogen, having a fair share of shots with the engines using their model faces so that Nitrogen can use their time to get the scenes where the faces are animated looking their best. No doubt the same reason why there are a handful of shots where the engines are facing away from the camera, placing them very far away from the camera, or having their faces obscured by things like random coaches left out on the line, just because it saves time having to animate the faces. But, on the other hand, it raises a very valid question. Why animate the faces at all if the show looks just fine with the standard ones? Either go whole hog and animate all the faces, or just stick to what you're used to with the old ones. Because no matter what, those faces will clash when the two styles are inevitably put together in the same shots. The animation on the faces isn't overall terrible, though in some cases the angles are just completely off, or in the case of this one shot in Saved You, very uneasy with how it's lit. The issue stems from the people behind the scenes just being unable to agree on what should be CGI and what shouldn't. I could also assume that the same implies to the surprising lack of mouth movements, where instead of a character saying what they're doing or what they have done out loud, is instead the narrator telling us the characters are thinking this to themselves.
No one must see the statue before the show. It will be my wonderful surprise, and I will be the star of the show, he thought. I'll puff through this, thought Emily. I'm sure to win now, Thomas thought to himself.
Or in other cases, have the narrator tell us what they're saying to another character without their mouths moving.
Freddie told him all about his idea to have the party at the wharf. Mr. Percival thought having the party at the wharf was a very good idea.
It's like, for fuck's sake, pick a side. Do you want these characters to talk by themselves or not? Good God, and while we're on the subject of narration, even this managed to run into its own misfortunes. As we know, from The Great Discovery onwards, Pierce Brosnan was contracted to narrate the next 3 series of Thomas and Friends, which confirms they had initially planned to continue the series in this hybrid format. But due to those pesky financial issues, the show was changed last minute to go fully CGI after Series 12. And allegedly after some drama in the recording booth, which I'm not going to get into, Pierce left the show after recording all of the narration for that series. However, the animation had already been done to fit Pierce's recorded lines, so when Michael Angelis and Michael Brandon were brought back last minute, they had to awkwardly match the pre-made mouth movements. Poor Michael Angelis, bless him, he is trying to match those mouth movements, but not only is he being rushed through 20 episode scripts, but with how badly these stories are written, his heart just isn't in it. Sometimes his delivery sounds robotic and emotionless, or just really weird and inconsistent.
Yes, I want to be the first engine to see Miss Marvel. Good morning. I'm sorry, but I don't have time to help you. I have to collect the fireman. He's a hero. Are you lost? Would you like some help? No, thank you. I'm not lost.
Though, like with all his hit model narration, he does have some bright spots. His American voice for Hank is just so adorable, like it's the one instance where he's having fun with the voices, and really adds to Hank's obliviousness.
Howdy, everybody. Thomas is overloaded right now. I'll whistle for him.
And a part of me likes his Irish accent for Freddy.
There'll be decorations, presents, and a big tree covered in lights.
Why he gave this accent to Freddy, of all characters, might have something to do with both Michaels potentially listening to Pierce's narration recordings for preparation. Now, there's no hard evidence to suggest that they did that for these recording sessions, but not only do we have Angelis doing an Irish voice for Freddy, but in the US dub of The Party Surprise, there's a moment where Brandon's voice for Freddy switches from a deep-sounding dumb guy voice to an Irish voice.
It was a surprise for Colin, sir. Colin has never been to a party.
But you should have asked me first.
Oh, yes, sir.
If I work quickly, I can still put everything right.
So I assume when Pierce did the voice of Freddy, he too gave him an Irish accent. Or at least a more exaggerated Irish accent, because, you know, Pierce is already Irish. and so Angelus and to a lesser extent Brandon tried to replicate it? Again, this is all speculation, don't take what I say as hard fact, it just got me thinking. As for Michael Brandon, he definitely sounds the most at home, and I think that's because he is just not trying to match the mouth movements. Not as much as Angelus tried to do anyway, but in doing so, he's able to deliver a more natural sounding performance. He has his usual weird sounding moments.
Hooray! I'm pulling the carnival special. Whee! He whistled as he rolled down the other side. Shucks, Thomas, I'm so sorry. That's too bad. Help, 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 help!
But overall, he is the best narrator for this series.
The steam has made my...
Brandon's voice has really grown on me over the course of reviewing the hit model series, and right now, at the very end of it, yeah, I like Michael Brandon as a narrator now. He's doing his best with what are very shitty episode scripts in Series 12. The music... I liked one bit of it, and that was the piano when James takes the wrong tracks and James works it out. But that is it. At its best, it's forgettable background music. At its worst, it's samey and repetitive, like the same frantic brass horn song used in Push Me Pull You.
Side of the puppet show special. He tried to
and I never want to hear it again. There's not even any music video songs to listen to. The poor guys really were rushed off their legs, weren't they? This next complaint is where I go into visual technicalities, so if you don't give a shit about that, take a nap. A micro nap, because I'm only going to talk about it for a minute, but yeah, enjoy that nap. Now, if you look at Series 12 in motion, you may feel like the way the engines move up and down the track seems a bit rigid, and that's to do with the frame rate. Thomas the Tank Engine was filmed on 35mm film cameras and continued to do so for the first 7 series of the show, until the hit buyout, and Series 8 onwards was filmed on digital cameras at 50 frames per second or 25 frames per second interlaced. It's a whole bunch of technical stuff around physical film versus things being filmed digitally, which I don't fully understand, but basically, what once gave the engine props so much weight and made them feel that one step closer to real engines was now gone, in favour of cheaper digital cameras that made them seem more like just model props than ever before. But on the upside, it made the slow-mo crashes cool to watch. Then Series 12 happened, which was the first and now only hit model production filmed and edited at 25 frames per second. While no confirmation was given, the current theory is that they did this to match the frame rate of how typical animation is done, which doesn't entirely add up, as animation is typically done at 24 frames per second, but whatever, it's just a theory. While this means we lose some of the smoothness of 50 FPS that made the engines feel more toy-like, there's now a new problem where their movements feel herky-jerky, especially noticeable when the engines set off from a standstill, apply their brakes, or come to a stop. The slow-mo crashes also suffer from this change too, as we're seeing the 25 frames per second slowed down to about 12 and a half. They lose their sense of weight and impact, while also making the slowed down rushing water in episodes like Steady Eddie so unnatural to look at. Maybe I should have asked this question at the start of reviewing the hit series. Damn, that review was a while ago, wasn't it? What was stopping them from shooting at 50 FPS and then slowing it down to 25 FPS in post-production? This isn't the first time the team was faced with this problem. Thomas and the Magic Railroad. I shot that bastard dead, he's not coming back. It was filmed at 24 frames per second, so when they slowed the footage down for Diesel 10 falling off the viaduct, it looked quite rigid. But I can forgive them there because that was a project that was made for cinema screens, therefore they were stuck with 24 FPS and just doing the best they could. And to their credit, that was the only time they did this with the model props in the entire movie. Here in Series 12, it's like a visual itch inside your brain. Not a complete distraction, but impossible to scratch. Okay, technical shit over now, time to wake up. Right, what else is there to discuss? Oh yeah, the colour grading. Series 11 and The Great Discovery tried using this piss yellow filter over the footage to make it look like old film reels. Clearly, this didn't work out, and so they ditched the piss filter for Series 12, making the colours more vibrant. A change I, and I'm sure many others, would appreciate if it weren't for the abundance of stock footage used from both Series 11 and The Great Discovery. What is it with Model Series Thomas having a shit ton of stock footage used in what is the tail end of both eras? The opening of Saved You is just a whole last segment from Thomas and the Storyteller. Thank God the Storyteller in that scene was just a JPEG making this primed and ready for reused shots, am I right? Oh dear. Well, if I can give the creative team something, there are one or two things I enjoyed about the model work. Series 12 has a lot of close-ups of the engine's wheels, more so than a lot of the hit model series thinking back on it. And I quite appreciate them. Thomas's wheels spinning in place as he revs up to race against Diesel makes no sense, but it looks cool. The POV shots of the engines running along are also very nice, especially when they're pushing goods trains in front of them. And I also really like this inside cab shot of Thomas's cylinder cracking in Heave Ho Thomas, where you can actually see the water leaking. All these little moments of impressive model work truly make Series 12 feel like we're seeing Model Series Thomas morphing into the CGI series, with all the ups and downs that come with it. These top 5 episodes are the best of Series 12 by default. They have their high points, but they're not entirely good. These are just as repetitive as the mediocre ones, and I want to breeze through them because at this point I am tired of Series 12. I'm literally listening to louder music as I write the script to keep me going. Number 5, Heave Ho Thomas. This episode I enjoy for Hank alone, especially the UK dub. I like how his obliviousness to annoying Thomas just pisses him off more and more until he literally reaches a breaking point. Get it? Because he breaks down. Number 4, Toby's special surprise. For once, Toby is not a coward, and his adventure to find something big and important is kind of intriguing. Also Whiff. It has my boy Whiff. I'm glad he'll eventually be the only Series 11 newbie to survive the switch to CGI. Number 3, the party surprise. I like Colin. The story building up to his surprise party is flawed but sweet, and he makes for a great extension to the already magnificent Wharf set. Pity we'll never see him or the Wharf again after this. Number 2, James works it out. James and Hector's dynamic is unique, the snow makes the set design look not terrible. I like that we briefly get to see Great Waterton covered in snow for the first time, and it's got that one bit of music that I actually liked. Number 1, Mountain Marvel. Did I put this above James Works It Out just to be different? Who's to say? But I like the continuity with Proteus' statue and how it ties specifically to Peter Sam's arc in that Series 9 episode. The 3 strikes are over and done in a flash, and it has that one instance where the CGI faces are used at their best. It's this shot where Peter Sam realises how heavy Proteus' statue is as it starts pushing him down the hill. Like he goes from smiling to, oh, this is actually really heavy. Oh shit! I like that. It's good use of the animated faces without having the narrator say anything for him. How the hell did they clean the statue in time for Miss Marvel's story time? You want to talk about my top 5 worst episodes of Series 12? Fine, I'll be quick about it. Don't go back, bandstand, brakes on, and push me, pull you off my back over a cliff. Like, can we be done with this? I want to get the shit off my head! Series 12. What a train wreck. The writing is at its worst, the characters are now just brain-dead puppets towards whatever crazy shenanigans move the plot forward, the narration is awkward, the way everything looks with the set design is disorganised, lifeless, and ham-fisted together in a tight deadline, the motion of the engine props is very rigid, and the whole thing feels like Thomas and Friends held together with a bunch of scotch tape. All for the sake of implementing weird-looking, outdated CGI faces, which they can't even decide when and where they want to use them, if at all. Things like the nice new characters, the sense of continuity, some solid world building for Great Waterton, and the unique character pairings with old and new faces can only do so much. It's a transition from one era of Thomas to another, and hot damn does it feel like it. Foreshadowing all the things I know I'm gonna hate going into Series 13 to 16, and despite the unfairness of the circumstances making Series 12 the unintended finale of Model Series Thomas, it doesn't change the fact that as a conclusion, it's awful. And it feels like whatever spirit of classic Thomas was there before, especially in The Great Discovery, is well and truly gone. However, I'm going to make the bold argument that Series 10 is worse. Hear me out. Series 12 was the result of everything that could go wrong behind the scenes going wrong. Having to adapt to a new way of filming the show with the engines wearing motion trackers and likely needing to film everything much faster so that Nitrogen Studios have the time to animate those faces in the first place. The poorly timed recession and inflated costs leading to Hit greenlighting the series to go fully CGI almost out of nowhere, and Pierce Brosnan leaving the show just when the animation was matched to his recordings. It was mishap after mishap, with the production team being unfairly rushed in horrible circumstances to keep model Series Thomas going. Series 10, on the other hand, had no technical issues, aside from that. Yet they intentionally made things harder for themselves by adding 2 more episodes to the roster. Everything about Series 10 regarding the stories and the set design, not counting the spectacular Worf set, was just the team going through the motions. It bored me to death watching it last year and left me with nothing much to say other than just memeing it to death just so I could entertain you guys with a review of a completely nothing series. They had no major issues behind the scenes, yet Series 10 fell flat. Series 12 is technically flawed, but it's to such an insane degree that it at least sticks in your head with how bad it is. There is a reason everyone agrees Push Me Pull You is one of the worst episodes of the show, because there are layers of shit you can get into with how awful it is. And while it seems awkward to be laughing at the team's efforts to keep the show alive under horrible working conditions, you still remember how much you laughed or how much you got annoyed from watching these episodes. It's something that you as a person and the friends watching it with can learn from and share an experience with. Therefore, I declare that Thomas and Friends Series 12 is the room of Thomas the Tank Engine. It's so bad, yet so memorable. Would you rather watch an empty, almost lifeless series of Thomas that overstays its welcome, or a series of Thomas that is ridiculous and so awkwardly held together that you can't help but smile at it? This fellow Thomas YouTuber decides the latter. Series 12 is a train wreck, but luckily, no one was hurt. And that's it. Not only are we halfway through reviewing Thomas and Friends, a journey that I set off to do in 2021, feels like ages ago now, but yeah, Series 12 is finally done. And it's been a bit of a wait for this one, definitely, but I genuinely hope from the bottom of my heart that this was the video that you guys were hoping for, and I apologise for keeping you all waiting on that. But as you can understand, this is quite a big one because, yeah, it's the end of the model series. Feels a bit weird to end it here with Series 12. You know, The Great Discovery was such a grand final stopping place, and to end it with Series 12 of all things, which, again, not the worst of the model series, but for it to be so bizarre and batshit insane, feels weird to just end it here. Feels a bit anticlimactic. So, in a way, it makes ending the model series part of this review series also a bit anticlimactic. Feels like, I don't know, there should be a more bombastic end to it, but I don't know what. I've got it.
And now, the end is near. And so I face the final curtain. My friend, I'll say it clear. I'll state my face, of which I am certain. I've lived a life that's full. I've traveled each and every highway. and more. Much more than this. I did it my way. Regrets? I've had a few. But then again, too few to mention. I did what I had to do and saw it through without extension. I planned each charted course, each careful step along the way, and more, much more than this. I did it my way. Yes, there were times I'm sure you knew when I bit off more than I could chew. But through it all, when there was doubt, I ate it up and spit it out. I faced it all, and I stood tall, and did it my way.
I've loved it. I've laughed and cried. I've had my thrill, my share of losing. And now, as tests subside, I find it all so amusing to think I did all that and made, I say, not in the shy way. Oh no! Oh no, not me. I did it my way.
For what is the train? What has he got? If not himself, then he has not. To say the things he truly feels, and not the words of one who kneels.
The record shows I took the blows and did it my way.
Goodbye. So long.
Toot toot. Goodbye. Bye-bye.
Goodbye. Come back and see us soon.
I'll save a seat for you.